you drowning in scraps? Can't bear to throw things away? Well, in this series, I'm sharing ideas to help you use your stash to create journals, ephemera, cards, and more. Welcome back, everybody. It's Scrap Busting Sunday, and if you watched last week's episode, you will know that I'd sorted out all my paper scraps on my desk that were sort of cream and white, and I used them to make an accordion journal. Now, at the end of that process, I still had a big pile of scraps, and rather than just chuck them back in my box, I sorted them out into 3 piles, and these are sorted roughly according to the width of the paper. And I'm going to show you an easy way to use these up today. So we're going to start with the biggest one first. Now, it doesn't matter what size your scraps are, but I would suggest you sort them so that they, like I have here, so that they're roughly the same size. And in fact, I'm just going to put that top bit with the other pile. So once you've got your pieces of paper, you need a piece of packaging which is slightly bigger. Now let's swap piles, because I do want the packaging to be a little bit bigger than the pile of scraps, because I want to be able to see the nice pattern that we're putting on the back. So you have your pile of scraps, put those to one side for a moment. Or before you do that, it's good to kind of get an idea of the length of them. Now look, these can be all different sizes, it doesn't matter, but let's pick a length that is roughly, there we go. We're going to tear that off. That bit can go up here on the top. So they are all different sizes, and I'm going to mix them up so that we haven't got all the shorter bits together. Doesn't really matter, that's just personal preference. There we go. And then tap them all on your desk. That one can go on top. Tap them all on the desk so that they're level at the top. Now that is really the important bit. Put a clip on them and hold them there. Now, as I say, your packaging needs to be a little bit wider each side. So I've got about a finger's width. Ooh, excuse my nails, I've been gardening. I've got about a finger's width each side. So let's trim this down. There we go, this is our cat food box here. Trim this down. I'm going to trim across the bottom again just a bit. Again, about a finger's width. So I've got about a finger's width down the sides and across the bottom, not at the top. So let's make this look a bit more attractive. I've got this piece of paper which I would love to use. It's not going to be quite big enough, I don't think. What I might do is put another coloured strip up here. Now this has just come from a magazine, so you're going to need some packaging and you're going to need some kind of image. Now this could be scrapbook paper, this could be magazine images, you can collage, it can be anything you like. So I'm just pulling in my red scrap straw here and having a quick look. That might work. Might just put a little plain red across the top. Oh, that's quite nice. That picks up the red on here. Right, what I'm going to do now is to cover this piece of card with this paper. So I'm going to be using matte gel medium, and I'm just going to cover the whole of my packaging. So as you will have seen, I've decorated the front and the back of the card just with scraps, bits and pieces that I have. As I say, this was a magazine image, bit of washi tape because it didn't quite reach the top. And what I've done then is just to stitch around the edge with my sewing machine. Now, we have lots of different ways that you can do this. The simplest way is, let me just find one, is to grab a clip, clip your pieces on. You can hang this up, you can do whatever, you know, it can be on your desk, you can take things out, put things in quite easily. The other thing you could do is to punch holes in your paper and tie thread or a ribbon through to hold them all on. But I'm actually going to show you probably the simplest way. The other thing I could have done, of course, is to hold my pieces of paper there whilst I run it under the sewing machine. And we might try that on one of the next ones to see if that works. But the simplest way of doing this is to grab your stapler. Yep, we've got staples in there. Now, my stapler is a little bit temperamental, so I'm hoping this is going to work. Pop your staple in. And there we go. You can then simply tear these off as you finish them. If you don't like the look of the staples, you can come back in with your washi tape or a strip of paper, anything that you have. Pop it over the top, and your paper should just tear off from underneath. I'm just going to go across the width of that top piece. In actual fact, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that washi tape across there, and I'm just going to fold it over the back like that. And I'm going to pop another piece across the back just to catch that end down. There we go, staples hidden. Now, you can have this in your purse, on your desk, wherever you like, but who doesn't love a notepad on their fridge? This is a sheet of magnet. I got it in one of our dollar stores, and you literally just cut what you want. Let's open it right up. You can see I've just used a little corner there. If we turn it over, it's probably easier to measure. Now, I don't want this all the way across, but I do want it to be a fair. So it's got to come to about there. Just straighten that up. Now this one comes sticky backed, and I've found it's quite good actually. It doesn't pull off too easily. So I'm going to put my magnet on the back, and there we go, that's ready to go up on my fridge. So there's our first notepad using scraps. Let's clear up and we'll come back and do another one slightly differently. I've just been rummaging in my packaging box. Now look at this. If you have, this was a tissue box. Now if you've saved something like this, You don't even need to decorate this. If you want to keep this as simple as use something pretty like this, you can find all sorts of packaging like this. Now this does have the brand on the side here, so I might just run a strip of washi tape or something down there, or even you could put a fussy cut, something in the corner if you wanted to cover that brand up. But look, you know, you can keep it really simple if you want to. Right, but for this next one, it's another tissue box, much plainer one. I'm going to be cutting this out and using this as the base, and this time I'm going to be using a gel print. I mean, I love gel printing, but what do you do with them all? However many projects you have, you seem to have some gel prints left over. So watch along, see what I do with this one. Okay, so I've taken, it's actually the bottom off the box, and again I'm going to look at my stack of paper, take it off to roughly the same level. There we go, there's my stack of paper. Now I'm going to cover this one in a more masculine print, if you like. You can come back at me on that one if you want to. I was going to use this because I love it and it's really pretty, but these little things make great gifts. And sometimes the men in our lives are really difficult to find little things for. So I'm going to be doing this one in this print with the thought that it would be suitable for a man as well. You know, hubby may well get this to put up in his workshop, and he can write down the measurements of things, or things that he needs to remember to buy, anything like that. So not only are we scrap busting here, but you know, we're starting to think, what is it now? It's almost the end of August. You know, we need to be starting to think maybe about Christmas presents if you celebrate Christmas. All right, so exactly the same procedure. Now you'll notice I've left that, when I cut that out, I made it slightly bigger than my base, and I will show you why in a moment. Best just check. Oh yeah, there's going to be plenty of space there. So as I said, each one is going to be slightly different. I'm giving you different ideas each time. This is about using what you have. This is not about going and buying new stuff. So I'm going to center that on there, like so. If I'd done my corners right, they would have all met like this and this. I think what's happened is that I've put my board on the paper slightly skew-iff, so this corner and this corner have got a little bit of a gap. It doesn't really matter, it's only the back. Right, if you wanted to put something over it, a little bit of washi tape would do the trick. Okay, so here is our board. I don't know whether it's got any specific orientation. I quite like it that way up. Now papers are going to go on like this. Now I am going to stitch around this again because I want to see if I can stitch through all these pieces of paper. I don't know. I've not tried. Let's have a go and see what happens. All right. So somewhat mixed success there. I zigzagged around the edge of this one and that went well. My machine wasn't overly keen, but we got through it, and I guess again that would depend how much paper you've got. I've got quite a few sheets here in this size that I wanted to use up, so it did struggle a little bit. Now this stitching for me doesn't look very decorative, although it's going to make great tear off pieces. So I've pulled out some washi tape here, and I'm just going to, actually that might be quite nice because it's going to pick up the same pattern that's on the background. Now, because that line of stitching is going to be used for tearing, I'm literally just going to keep it along the edge, hopefully. Okay, I think that should still work. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit of that across the bottom as well. You see that? Just to tie it all in. And look, if you're making these for other people, you can personalize them. You know, you could put a name or a little message along the bottom here. Now, instead of putting a magnet on this one, no, keep it simple. Right, instead of putting a magnet on this one, I have measured, I think it was about 3/4 of an inch in from each side, and I'm going to make a hole. So there we are. There's a second way of using up our scraps, making a notepad. All right, we've got one more to go. We're going to do something slightly different now. Okay guys, here's our last bundle of scraps. Now you may look at this and go, they're not wide enough to do anything with, certainly not for writing on, but you would be surprised. Now these are all between 1.5 and 1 3/4 inches. So they're not very big, but these are the scraps that I want to use up. I'm going to do something a bit different. I've just been rummaging around and I found this. This is a piece of music paper which has had a napkin collaged onto it. And I'll link a video below that I did a little while ago where I show you how to do this. But it's very simple. And this is a piece left over. I've obviously used the rest for something. Now, this is probably the easiest thing I'm going to show you today. So with this one, I'm going to take my sheets, I'm going to fold them in half, and I am going to trim them off just to keep things tidy. Now the other thing I need to do, because I'm using up this scrap, and you can use anything that you like, thick magazine page, gel print, anything will work. This happens to be a scrap that I found. I am just going to take a fraction more There we go. So I have folded those pages in half, and you will see not all of them are even, and that's okay, it doesn't matter. And I have folded my cover in half. I'm going to put the two things together, centering my pages. I'm going to put a couple of pegs because I have them handy. I'm going to grab my needle that I use for journaling, for stitching journals, and I think cream thread because it goes with. Now again, if you've got a long arm stapler, you can staple this, which is even quicker. The longest bit is going to be me threading this needle. I can feel it just because I'm doing it whilst you're watching me. There we go. All right, I'm not even going to measure this. I'm just going to eyeball. I'm going to make one hole there. Now I have a nice sharp needle. If you don't have a really big sharp needle, use an awl or a weeding tool or anything else you have. Now I've made those holes and I'm going to go in from the outside. Simple as that. Just once. And I'm going to tie this off. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to tie this down here. To hold all the pages together. And then I'm going to tie up here. And that is as simple as that. Now again, you could hang this up somewhere. You could throw this in your bag. You could have this on your desk. You could put this in a pocket in a journal. If you've done this with plainer paper, you could decorate the outside. You could put fussy cuts on. You could do whatever you like, really. You could stamp on it, whatever takes your fancy. I'm using up scraps today, and so I found this scrap. It happened to be the right size. There we go. Less than 5 minutes, and I have a little notepad. So let's have a quick recap of what we've done today. So for this Scrappy Sunday, we have been using up the rest of our odds and ends of plain cream and white paper that's been on my desk accumulating for a while. So I started by sorting all the pieces of paper into approximate widths, into a pile of approximate widths, and then we've made 3 different things. Our first thing was a magnetic note paper, ideal to go on the fridge. Our second was the same concept but with a hanging string, and we attached the papers differently. We stitched through them. And the last one, with our very thin pieces, we've made just a little notebook at 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 inches wide, ideal to pop in a pocket in a journal or pop in your bag when you're going out and about. Ideal for jotting down ideas. So I hope these 3 things have been useful for you. As I say, really you can use anything you like, and as you saw there, I've used a magazine page, a gel print, and a piece of scrap decoupage napkin. So I hope this has been useful, guys. Do join me again next Sunday for some more Scrappy Sunday. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Ka kite anō.